Amax Estates is your local area expert in North Kent and South London, specialising in residential sales, lettings and block management.
Hello! I am so pleased and excited to have my special guest here today with me. I have the infamous Megan 18. Now, if you don't know Megan 18, well, where the hell have you been? This lady is an absolute superstar. She rocks. But I had the pleasure of first meeting Megan 18. I believe it was actually through COVID. And we had the lovely Ange Davey, who was our first ever virtual president. I was the president-elect. We were doing the interviews for regional reps for Propertymark, and Megan came along to us. And we just knew she was going to be one of the best rising stars. And we were right. So here we are today. I am absolutely privileged to have you with me today on this podcast. So thanks for coming along, Megan. And, it's lovely to host you, to have you along to this podcast today.
Well, thanks for having me. And yeah, that was a while ago, wasn't it? It was terrifying because it was you guys. And I think we had David Cox as well, didn't we?
We did,
Yeah.
yes, we did. And you had to do a presentation, if you remember. And I remember you coming along being quite nervous, yet your presentation was absolutely fab. So why you were nervous, I just don't know.
It was three pretty big names in lettings, though. And, it was quite a big deal. And yeah, it was terrifying. Like, because for me, as somebody that has been a Propertymark member, for 10 years, you see these people and you sort of put them on a pedestal as well, because you don't know them as a person. You only know the work they do. So it was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. Well, no need to be terrified, because you just proved everything that we thought about you.
No.
And you've been an absolute superstar. You've rose, so, quick as well. It's like, you came along, then you put yourself forward to become the president of Propertymark. So then you took in the first part of it as being the vice president. You're now president-elect, and you're in the hot seat next year. Oh my God, how are you feeling about that?
Do you know what? It's really exciting, and it's been really lovely because I've got to watch my friends go through it. I got to watch you do it. I got to watch David Votter do it, Greg do it, and now Harry. So I feel like I've got to see all of my friends do it and then learn what, and every time I speak to a different one of you, it's like, oh, make sure you do this and make sure you do that. And so I think by the time I come round, I'll have been so well prepared for my presidency. I'll have all the tips and the tricks in my repertoire.
Absolutely. I think you're going to be absolutely fabulous. And of course, it's like going more to the younger generation now. So I think that's a wonderful thing. You are Gen Z, I guess, the one.
I wish, Max. I wish. Definitely a millennial, definitely. But I will be the youngest president that we've ever had, which I'm sure we've heard for the last couple of years, because obviously it started with Votter and then Harry. But I am younger than Harry, so I get to take that as well. So I keep joking with her. I'm like, only for a year, Harry, and then it's mine.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's great because that's also attracting the younger generation. Our job is here to stay, let's be honest. We're always going to be needed. And so, we have to be the advocates. We've got to encourage more people to come into our industry. And talking about that and talking about getting into the industry, let's talk a little bit about you and your backgrounds. I mean, how did you actually become a letting agent? How did you get involved in our industry?
I like to think it was like some big fluke. And I always said that it was some big fluke. But actually, when I think about it more, I actually think I think it was sort of almost like etched into me from a young age. So my mum was an estate agent, and she ran branches in the 90s, which was quite unusual really for a female to be doing. Not that I realized that at the time, I just saw her go to work, but she was a single mum. And so when I was unwell, I'd have to go sit in the back of the office, so she could work. So I would sit and play on the typewriters and, play around with all the bits and bobs you find in the back of an estate agencies in the 90s. And yeah, so then I kind of ended up doing it because I came back from working as a ski instructor and I had no job. And I thought, oh, I need a job between ski seasons. And I ended up doing like a long-term sick cover for 6 months for a lady that was having, I think she was having cancer treatment. And I basically typed property details and I ordered HIP reports and just did sort of general admin in the office. But when I think back to my childhood, I think it was sort of early there, but also like, you know, at school you do topic books, so you know you get to do like, I don't know if it was the same for every school, but once a year you got to do a topic that you chose. And so all the kids were doing, you know, dinosaurs or dolphins or whatever, and I did mine on property, and I've
Oh,
still got
well,
it. And I went around the local area and I took pictures of the different style of property and different bricks, and so I did a whole project on property. And I must have only been about 8 or 9. So I think it was safe to say it was probably etched into my soul before I even had a chance to think about it. But my plan was originally to be a journalist.
well, that's really interesting. But you know, it's like you're young. You've
Yeah.
still got the world is your oyster. There's no reason why you can't still become a journalist. But you're doing really well in what you do, and you're known for what you do, and you know, you are making a difference. So it's obviously, as you said, it's kind of like in you know, like etched into your brain that it was going to be something, but it wasn't actually a chosen career. And I picked up on something else you said while you were just talking, that you were a skiing instructor. Well, how did that happen?
Yeah, so I was all set to go to university, had a university place locked in, and then went on like a college ski trip, and I met this ski instructor called Wes, who I'm still friends with actually. And I joke that he completely you know, railroaded my career because I had such a fun week learning from him that I thought, oh, I'd like to do that for a bit. So I came home and I ended up deferring my place to university, and I went and trained to be a skiing and snowboarding instructor. So I did that in California in Lake Tahoe. So I did that, and then came back and thought, I don't think I want to go to uni now. So my mum was like, just defer another year and, you know, you can do another ski season, see how you feel. So I did my typing for 6 months, then went out to Canada, did the same. And I came back and I just didn't want to go. I didn't want to go to uni. My life had changed. And so I ended up going to apply for a job as administrator at a company called Chancellors. And I went into the interview to be an administrator, and I left as a property manager. So it then just sort of sparked from there, really.
Yeah, yeah. And you've never looked back.
Never look back. And it doesn't matter what they throw at us. I still seem to stick around. So yeah, so I've been doing this now since I was 19.
Yeah, yeah. So not really a chosen career, almost a career that chose you.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it.
Well, I mean, you're doing really well. It's great to see, you know, the sort of the stuff that you've been doing. You've been encouraging younger people. You are, and everybody knows this, you are famous as the TikTok queen. And your stuff that you do on social media, well, I mean, it's fantastic.
Thank
How
you.
the hell did you get into that? Because you were one of the first ones, and
Yeah.
everybody, we refer to you as the TikTok queen. So how did all that happen?
It was a massive fluke, Max. So I don't know if you were on the same call, but just after I became a rep, I think it was Rachel HB. She offered to put on a little basic social media course for us. And we did it one evening, and we all sat there and had a glass of wine, and she talked us through like the things to update on LinkedIn. And she said, I think TikTok will be the next big thing, but no agent's doing it because nobody's brave enough to kind of put themselves out there, because let's be honest, we do get a bit of a bad rep, and we get a lot of stick for it. And I sort of went, excuse my French, fuck it, I'm gonna give this a go. What's the worst that can happen? So the next day I recorded my first video, sent it to Rachel, and went, what do you reckon? She went, yeah, give it a go. And I recorded 5 things we're looking at when we come to value your property. And it, you know, I look back now and it's totally cringe. And then I started getting questions off the back of that video, and it did pretty well. And then I would answer those questions, and then I did literally probably day 2 or 3, I answered one question about dogs or pets, and it just went viral. It just blew. And it sort of then built this sort of traction quite quickly. So it grew really quickly. And I think that people in our industry, as I said, hadn't done it because they were a bit nervous. So, but then they started to see it was sort of doing it was going quite well. So then you started to see a little bit more of it. And now, I mean, everyone's on TikTok now. So it's lovely. It's really, I feel really proud that I could be a small part of that movement. But really it was that moment of, well, you know, what's the worst that can happen?
And what's your following?
I think at the moment it's about 11,000, I think. I'll be honest, I took a bit of a backseat on it this year, just with how busy everything's been. And I'll be honest, it's been a little bit put on the back burner. But my plan is to resurge it, but I sort of feel like I'm going to wait for the renters' rights bill to kick in, because I think there's no point doing a load of content on videos that's just going to expire. Like, you need content to last.
Yeah.
And especially on TikTok, because it'll keep going round, and I don't want to be responsible for putting out the wrong information because the laws have changed. So I think I'm just going to sit tight, enjoy the little break from it, and then pick it back up again when we know what we're doing with that.
Yes, yeah, great idea. But you have done so well. Social media, I mean, we all know you for your social media skills. So, and leading the way, you know, actually, like, as you say, nobody was doing it. I actually was on that call at that time. I wished I'd embraced something like that. I think I had the glass of wine, enjoyed it and forgot about it, and then went and put my feet up and sat there and watched the telly. So, yeah, but no, you embraced it, and that's actually great to see that you did that. So you're a really busy lady, and I know you've got a 6-year-old as
Yeah.
well. So not only do you do all this stuff, but how do you juggle it, all the mum stuff and everything else around young Dexter?
Do you know what? I think I don't think you ever really master a juggle. And I think that we are sold this dream or this lie that you can just juggle everything, or it's easy to juggle, or you can find a balance. I don't think you ever really find the perfect balance, but you also have to take into consideration, you know, the fact that you have to earn money as well. So it's a balance, isn't it? So for me, it's about being quite protective about the time. So, like, for example, when it's the weekend, it's the weekend. You know, we don't do work. You know, this is our time. And I try, when I pick them up from school, I try really hard to make sure I fully engage where I can, make sure we get our homework and our reading done. But there are times where that just goes out the window as well. But then there's equally times where it's a busy time at work, and then suddenly your kid gets sick. You've got to take the time to go look after your child. I've just had time off with him to, I've had to delay starting a new job because he's had to have his tonsils out. So, life throws things at you. And I think that my biggest advice would be is just take it one day at a time and not overthink everything. I really panicked when he started school about how I would handle things like summer holidays, but you find a way. But it's also about reminding him why you do it. And I think for me, as somebody that grew up with, a really strong female role model, I think it's really good that my little boy grows up seeing that mummy can do all these things and still be mummy, because I think that the more, it's important for little girls to see, but I also think it's really important for the little boys to see it, because we're setting that tone for that next generation.
Definitely, yeah, and he will always love you for it. The fact that you've been there. I know that he is your, he's your world, really, isn't he? You talk.
Oh yeah, he's the
time we see his pictures. He just looks so cute. Like,
he's very cute. I always feel really bad because he is exceptionally cute, but most of the world don't get to see him because I'm quite. So you're on my Facebook. So I have to say to people, I'm so sorry, because I have a gazillion Facebook requests, but I don't accept them from people who I just haven't really don't know, because obviously I like to share photos on my Facebook of Dex all the time, as you would see, Max. But on my LinkedIn and on my professional Instagram, you will only ever see the back of his head. So I feel like I deprive the rest of the world of how cute he is, because I think he's very cute.
Yeah, but I totally understand that, because there's also that barrier, isn't there? There's that level of like professionalism, your friends, and also your business life. And, you know, it is really important that it's like you kind of maintain that. And I think that's a great thing to do. So, you know, we love seeing pictures of Dexter, but I totally understand why. And you know, I became a grandmother 2.5 years ago. Now I've got a second one, which is wonderful. So I've got a boy and a girl now. And I never put pictures out of them at all, because it's like maintaining that sort of professionalism and personal life as well. And I think that that's really important, that balance. And
Yeah.
I think you've got it right there. So I totally get where you are with that. So tell me, you know, it's like you're always out there. We see like loads of stuff about you. You're always really up there and you're motivated. What keeps you so motivated?
Um, oh, that's a really good question, Max. What keeps me motivated? I think probably Dex does, because I do want him to have a really amazing life. I had such a really lovely childhood. But we didn't have loads of stuff. You know, we didn't have the brand new I mean, I remember turning up to non-school uniform day in my brother's jeans that were like, because everyone wore baggy jeans back then, and like, so I just wore my brother's jeans because that's all I had, you know. And so for me, I really like to, you know, I really want to almost, it sounds awful, I really want to spoil him, but I love spoiling him. And I'm not ashamed of that, because I just think, well, I work hard for that. So Dexter's a massive motivation, but also I really like to prove myself and people wrong, I think, which maybe is a funny thing to say, but when I fell pregnant with Dex, you know, he was a very planned, you know, it was actually funny, Max. I just when I, you know, the conversation around having children was there, and I was like, oh, you know, I don't want to step out of my career. And then the tenant fee ban was coming, and I thought, you know what, I'm not even joking when I say this, and people think I'm crazy for saying it, but I was like, let's do it now, because the tenant fee ban is going to kick in, and I can take a year off while the business sort out what we're going to do. And then when I come back, it'll all be sorted. So that was the plan. So I fell pregnant, and then the tenant fee ban got delayed by a year. So at that point,
best plans and all that.
It was too late. I was already pregnant. So I actually went back to work 6 months before the fee ban kicked in. So I was like, well, you know, could have worked out beautifully, but instead I just missed a year of earning way more money. So yeah, it's funny how life pings that way, really.
It is, yeah. And actually planning it around the tenant fee ban, that's a really interesting one.
Max, I have to say,
that's how dedicated you are to your work.
Honestly, if you look at my like life calendar, you'll go, my God, like her world is so like I'm not joking when I say my whole world is integrated around my job. And for some people that they'll be like, oh, that's quite sad. I sort of love it in a way, you know, like my waters broke while I was at work, you know, didn't tell anybody because I wanted to finish my handover before, because I knew they'd send me home, and I was like, well, I haven't finished my handover. You know, even when my mum was, you know, in hospital in her last sort of few days, we popped out and did evaluation, and because she was in property, she was like, did you get it? And I was like, yeah, I got it, you know, like, so even in those like final days, you know, we were talking about whether I'd want an instruction. So it's really been embedded in my blood. Like Dexter's first ever baby grow, his first ever photo is a picture of him wearing a Davis Tate estate agency baby grow.
Yeah, that is absolute dedication. The final, you know, the everything is real dedications.
Quite sad, really, though, isn't it? But I sort of love it at the same time. And I recently went through, as you know, a change of circumstances with my work, and I found myself in a position where I suddenly didn't have a job, and it was like your identity gets pulled away.
Yeah.
And when you're so ingrained in your work, suddenly losing that identity is terrifying. But what and I took some time out and I did some consultancy work whilst I was working out my next move. I actually think it's been really good for me to really, like, one of my biggest fears at those training days, you know, when someone walks around and goes, tell everybody about your hobbies. And I think, oh my God, I haven't got one because it's just work. And so, like, for me, taking a bit of time out to kind of work out who you are is really important. And it's been a really interesting learning curve.
So really, you've never really actually taken that pause since you know, obviously you took the pause with being a skiing instructor, then you came back, then you threw yourself into your career. Dexter came along in between, the tenant fee ban, that went a bit wrong. But it's like this time has actually given you time to reflect, which sounds as if, you know, therapeutically and for you, it's been a really good thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's like grief, isn't it? You know, you go through the different stages of it.
Yeah.
So I think probably I will look back and say it was a really good thing, but you know, going through it, it felt like a very hard thing.
Yes.
But I do feel, I'll be honest, there were points where I went, do you know what? Maybe I don't want to work in property anymore. And I'll be honest, had I not had the presidency lined up for June, I think there would have been a really high chance that I would have walked away, purely because of how I was feeling in that moment. So really, it's the presidency's probably kept me keeping that moving forward. But I think I've just never had the, as you say, like, I mean, obviously I had maternity leave, but let's be honest, no one's doing anything productive mentally then. It's all about caring for this new human. There's no time, no time at all. So yeah, I think it's been a really steep learning curve for me, but it's been quite nice to sort of, I know it sounds really stupid, almost like date yourself.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
go out and like sometimes I've gone out and sat and had lunch just on my own, like,
Yeah.
and I'd never have done that before because I hate the silence.
Yeah.
But actually it's been really good for just like sitting and doing that, and you know, getting out and trying different exercise and getting out in the fresh air and spending a bit of time. But do you know what's been really lovely? Being able to pick up my son from school every day and be there to do his homework every day. And I sat down yesterday and I said to him, I said, look, buddy, mummy's going back to work in 2 weeks. So, you know, we're going to be going back to mummy picking you up like 2 days a week. And he was like, does that make you sad? And I went, well, you know, it's really exciting for mummy, but yeah, of course, I've really enjoyed spending all this time with you. And he went, it's, you know, one of those things you think, where did you learn this? And he was like, but if it doesn't make you happy, you shouldn't do it.
Oh, bless
I
him.
thought, I said to him, I said, yeah, but I've got to pay the bills, buddy. So, you know, it's all well and good, but no one's going to pay me to work half a day every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So really, I mean, yeah, you know, I know I've been in that place myself. I got made redundant twice. And the second time I thought, blow it, I'm going to start my own business. And that's what happened to me, you know, all those years ago. And then I never looked back, because once you start and you get on that like hamster's wheel, you got to get off of it. You become unemployable, I believe.
Yeah, I had that fear about myself, to be honest, because
Yeah.
you know, when you come with a little bit of a social media platform, I actually said to my new employer, I said, I don't want to make a big thing about this. I want to make it, I just want to like slink in and just get stuck in. But you know, I toyed with the idea of doing something. Well, you know, we spoke about it, about doing something myself. But I think for me, it just came down to the fact that I already spread myself quite thin, and I don't want to take away even more time away from Dex. And I would rather focus my energy on a really good business than be worried about whether I can pull this off.
Yeah, yeah, understandable. Well, there's a song dedicated for you
Oh
over.
yeah.
It's got to be Miley Cyrus, Flowers.
Oh yes, I'm
Yeah,
very annoyingly independent, I think.
yeah, yeah,
Very annoyingly independent, but also I think annoyingly independent for lots of different reasons. I think my work people, I am that person that despite telling people they shouldn't do it, that I'm like, just let me do it. Just
Yeah.
let me get on with it. And like,
No,
it's actually really,
you know
it's
what?
actually a bad management to do it.
Well, it is. It's that shit. See me, show me, let me try. Watch me praise
Mm.
me, see me fly. So
I
yeah.
understand the logic, Max, but in reality, it's very different, isn't it?
It
And
is when you're a control freak.
I'm a total control freak. And do you know what? I'm proud of it.
Good for you.
But someone said to me, I did a training session with Holly Marshall years ago, back when I was like way before I did any of this stuff. And she told this story about how her son was learning to tie his shoes, and that one day he was just taking too long. She was like, oh, just let me do it. And then the habit broke. And so basically every day she was tying his shoes. And then he got to something, I can't remember exactly how old, but he got to like 12 or 13. And he couldn't tie his shoes because she just had spent so long being like, oh, just let me do it. And I remember thinking, God, we do it all the time. Like, we do it to our kids, but we also do it to team members where you're just like, oh, just let me do it because it's quicker.
It's true. It's true. It's frustrating, and it takes 10 times as long. But when we allow people to actually like take control, it's almost therapeutic when you see them actually like
Yeah.
flourish and, you know, do really well, because you know that you've imparted them with those skills. But it is the hardest thing when you are, you know, somebody who's quite a strong, formidable character, and it's just quicker. You know, it's like, let me
Yeah.
do it. Do it.
We're all so busy as well. And like everyone's busy from, you know, and in every agency you work at, whether you're in admin or whether you're the owner of the business, everyone's busy. And if they're not busy, you need to look at your workloads. But and so you sort of almost feel, yeah, like you don't want to add more like to somebody else's plate either. And I hear it all the time with every mastermind group I sit in. It's the same issue that we all care so much. It's so difficult to then take that step back to, you know, actually let somebody else take the reins. But we all know that it's the right thing to do, but it is very hard.
Yeah. Well, you only have 6 months before you take that hot seat.
God, it's only 6 months.
So
It's going
I
so quick
know it's
already.
well, we're nearly into November, so it's
Scary.
when this is seen, you'll probably already be out there and it'll be seen lots of times. But I'd like to know, I mean, I've done it myself, as you know. What are you going to plan for that year? Do you have a specific message that you want to get out there, that you want to actually achieve in the 12 months when you're president of Arla Propertymark?
So I always had two. Do we call it a manifesto? Is that too fancy for what? But
No,
that's basically my
call it
pledges,
what
I
you
guess.
want.
Call it what we want. When I went through the presidency the presidency process, it's a mouthful, isn't it? I talked a lot about two areas, and one was really trying to pull that next generation along with us. So it was that attract, train, and retain piece. We're losing people out of this business at a really, really, really speedy rate, but we're also not attracting that fresh blood. And I look at the generation that I'm kind of in, you know, and we're sort of the sort of younger end of the millennial scale. I've not seen that next generation yet. Those people where you look at them and think, yeah, they're your next CEO of Propertymark, they're your next NRLA chief exec. And that worries me. And I think it's because the industry that the generations before mine came into, it was almost like you wore burnout like a badge of honor, you know, that you worked to a level that was so unachievable that then you burn out, but mental health wasn't really talked about, so you just carried on until eventually you just went, I'm done with this job, and leave, often into recruitment. But my generation is a slightly more, people call us sensitive. I actually am fine with that, because I think that we're more self-aware and more in tune with what our bodies and minds need. But you look at us and then you take that next generation and they will not stand for it. They are not going to sit there and, you know, be on the phones at 8 p.m. at night because you want to do a Friday night call out. It's not going to happen. And so our industry needs to adapt to attract this next generation, but we also need to start that process earlier. Now, for me, you know, it was funny when we talked a little bit about my kind of crossroads about what I was doing. And one of the things that kept me here was the presidency in terms of in property. But the other thing was that I'd invested so much time into my learning and qualifications that it would be for me a waste to walk away from that. So if we can get younger people through a, you know, qualifications journey, I think that will help retain them. So it's about giving them a real like place in this industry, not just a, well, off you go and do the viewings. You know, we need to nurture them younger. So that was kind of my number one priority. And my number two, I think, is an optimistic one. And Gary from Quals, if you're listening, I will keep asking you because I keep doing it. But I did my level 4, and it was an amazing learning opportunity for me. I did applied law, I did agricultural tenancies, all these things that I would never have been exposed to. But the new level 4 for Propertymark qualifications for sales and lettings is very focused on business ownership. And so for me, for people like me that don't want to own their own business but want to continue to learn and to grow, you need to make sure there's a level 4 in place for that. So I really would love a qualification journey for everybody, irrespective of whether they want to be a business owner. But I think that one might be a bit longer than a year. But it was a bit like you with your apprenticeship, you know, push. It doesn't all happen in a year. It's just that where you want to kind of start it. So I would love to get to a point where you have lettings managers that are doing their level 4 qualification because they want to learn more in-depth knowledge and law, not just because they want to own a business.
Definitely. And I must say, you know, it's like, I think that that's great, you know, that you've already mapped out your path of what you want to achieve. Qualifications, professionalizing the industry is something that we so desperately need. And if people are going to walk away with professional qualifications, with letters after their name, it actually enhances our industry. Right now, you know, as an employer, and for 22 years being an employer, it's very difficult to get people to actually see the value of the qualifications, because anyone can do it. You know, it's so sad. I mean, we are dealing with people's houses, the most valuable assets going, and yet anybody can just jump into this industry without any qualifications. And you know, I've always been big on this. I've been training landlords and agents for the past 20 years, and I think it's so important. But we need also the powers that be out in government to actually recognise that, and we're still fighting that battle.
Yeah.
And I find this incredibly sad when you think in any other industry you wouldn't be able to actually trade without having your professional qualifications. So I'm absolutely with you on that. And, you know, I support everything that you're saying in that year. And I really do wish you great luck with that, because you are a strong character. And I'm pretty sure if you keep banging that out, and keep saying that and keep going on at Gary.
Sorry, Gary. We love Gary as well.
Oh, of course we love Gary. But, you know, just whoever and wherever and every opportunity, you know, you've got some great people within the organisation that will listen, that are actually involved, as well as, you know, ministers and MPs and people that are sitting there up the top. We do need to be a professionalised industry and not a cottage industry, which actually, yeah, you sort of fall into. And people will feel a lot more valued if
I
they
think
actually
so.
get their qualification.
I think so. And if you don't mind, Max, a little plug really for the Propertymark Trust. So if there are people that want to do their qualifications, but maybe financially are not able to make that commitment, you know, the Propertymark Trust have educational grants that they'll pay out to help support people through their qualifications. So if people are listening and they want to do it, but maybe financially aren't able to, or maybe not getting the support through their business that they wanted to, please reach out, because you know that's what we're all about. You know, it's one of our pillars is that. And then of course when people hit on hard times, but you know, don't let money be a blockade to enhancing your skill set.
Thank you for that. That's really useful. Maybe you can give us a link and we'll pop a link
Yeah.
onto this, because that is so useful. And it's quite possible, you know, not every employer is actually thinking about the employee. And so if there is something that can actually help, young employees that are coming in and they're desperate to do their qualification and maybe they're not getting the support from their employers, that's great to know that there is somewhere that they can go to through Propertymark Trust to be able to actually help get those qualifications and get that financial support. So thank you so much for that. I've got to change the subject. Dogs.
Oh, yeah,
Dogs.
tell me.
You have 3 corgi dogs,
I
and
do.
I understand that you actually went into this sort of like passion of corgi dogs because of the Queen.
I'm so impressed that you remember that, Max. I'm
Tell
so
me.
impressed. I can't believe you remember that.
Do you remember when I took a picture of that like multicolored corgi and I
Yeah,
sent it
yeah.
to
It was opposite the sanctuary, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about this sort of passion for these corgi dogs that I seem to recall you knew nothing about, and you went and bought your first one without doing any research.
Yeah, I did. I did. It's so funny. I love that you remember this. Because I don't talk about it often, which shows that you do listen. So growing up, me and my mum were absolutely obsessed with the Queen. And I wouldn't say that I am massively obsessed with the royal family, but very particularly the Queen. And so much so that when she died, people were texting me to check I was okay, like as if I knew her. And like it was about 4 or 5 weeks after she died, my stepmom actually turned around to me. She was like, "And how are you doing?" I was like, I didn't know her. It all started because obviously she's like the total powerhouse of a woman. Like, she knows when to roll her sleeves up. She did so in the war. I always felt a little bit connected to her after my mum died as well, because we lost significant parental figures at a similar age. But what she's done as a woman is just, I'm not even sure there's many words that you can explain. But I actually went through a phase of then collecting memorabilia. So me and my mum used to have what we called the Queen shelf, the Lizzie shelf. And we had like 3 shelves in the kitchen in our family home. And every time we'd see something in like a charity shop, I'd be like, "Oh, look what I've got." And we'd add it, to it. And then we obviously, when I moved out, we then split it out. So it all started that way, really. I had a massive love for the Queen. So when I bought my first house, I bought it just before I got married. So he was down on one knee, and I said to him, "We can get married, but I'm only doing it if we've bought a house first," because ever the practical one. And when we moved in, I said to him, "Should we get a cat?" And he said, no, we're not going to get a cat. I don't like cats. I was like, "Yeah, but like, I had a cat growing up. Like, let's just get a cat." And he was like, "No, it's a dog or nothing." And I went, "Fine. Well, I get to pick it." And he went, "Fine." I went, "Okay." So I was like, "I want a corgi." And he was like, "Okay, well, have you done any research on the corgi?" And I went, "Yeah, like I've done loads of research." Anyway, so that was fine. So what was supposed to then wait until after we'd got married, a week after buying our first house, it was, I found us a puppy. So we're then down the motorway, as I said, literally a week after buying our first house, driving down to get this corgi. And I'd never been to buy a puppy before. Like, I had a rescue cat. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, "Is it a puppy farm?" "No, it's fine. Everything's fine." Anyway, so I'm sat with this dog, and about 3 or 4 days into getting stock, I was like, "Bloody hell, he does molt a lot, doesn't he?" And he turned to me and he was like, "You didn't research them at all, because that is the first thing that anybody says, is that they molt." And I went, "No, I didn't. I just thought he was really cute and the Queen's got one." And sort of that's where it really began. So Wilson was my first child, and he still molts. Like, it's just unreal how much corgis molt. Like, everyone should understand that it's not like normal levels. Like, I have to get a rubber brush and brush my carpet before I hoover it. And having 3 doesn't help. So Wilson came about that way, and then rescued Dino about a year later. And then that was that. And then after my mum died, my friend reached out and was like, "Oh, I've just been looking at puppies in Reading." And I was like, "What puppies?" And there was one puppy left, and it was the colour of corgi that I always said would complete the set, so it was a full Neapolitan of corgis. And yeah, so then that's how Teddy came along. Turns out they don't help grief. They actually are quite hard work, and you forget that. But yeah, they're brilliant. You can't see, but I've got a picture of all 4 of my children, one picture for each of them, 3 dogs and a Dex. But yeah, it's lovely. And yeah, they're just little fluff balls, but they're getting old now, Max, and I am terrified because they're all similar ages, so I just feel they're going to go like dominoes and leave me.
Yeah. Oh, well, I've got 2 dogs. One who's coming up for 11, and you can tell he's getting old. And then
Yeah,
the other one's 6. So, yeah, and it is a terrifying thought
it
because
is.
they are your babies.
I literally
They
sit
come to
there
your
sometimes,
home, and they're unconditional love, isn't it? Animals give
unconditional, and I
unconditional.
sometimes sit there and I'm stroking them, and I'll literally just turn to them like, please don't die. Like, I'll say it to them, I'm like, please don't die, please don't die anytime soon. Like, and I saw this thing on TikTok that said if you give your dog 20 blueberries a day, that it helps their brain function. So we're going to be eating a lot of blueberries and keep them alive as long as possible.
Do you really do that?
Yeah,
20. Okay.
yeah. Max, if you told
I
me,
give Sammy 2 moves.
if you
Or
told
you
me that
movers.
I need to give them scrambled eggs for breakfast every day to keep them alive, I would do it, like
Yeah.
whatever is needed. And we were joking in what we call the Arla Spice Girls, because we all clubbed together with a couple of others to buy Harry a gift when she became president, and we bought her dream pair of Louis Vuitton shoes, and they're beautiful. So if you see her at any other events wearing them, you know where they came from.
Yeah.
And the guy said to me, well, what are we going to get you? And I went, I want a puppy. And they were like, no, but seriously. I'm like, no, I was like, if you're buying me a nice gift, I want a corgi puppy, and we can call him Prez, the presidential puppy. I was like,
Oh, so you've already made up your mind there's gonna be a number 4.
well, then I can be like, I've got forgies.
Well, this is true.
I
Yeah.
think it's just the right thing, but also don't think I could put a puppy into this house, because I think the other 3 would not be happy.
No, no, and that's the problem. When you bring in another one, it does cause disruption. Yeah.
Honestly, and the worst one was bringing in Dexter. That was the real disruption, bringing in a baby into the mix with 3 dogs that would be like treated like royalty, and then suddenly they're being told to get off the sofa.
Yeah.
Was a real shock to their system, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, so you must absolutely adore these dogs to actually have 3 and even consider number 4 and have your forgy.
Oh, I think I'd have a zoo, Max. If money was no object, I'd totally have, like, I'd have llamas, I'd have goats, I'd have chickens, I'd have them all.
Yeah, love of animals. Right. So tell me, just to conclude, what if you were kind of like writing your eulogy, not to say that we're expecting you to go anytime soon, but
Hope not.
like a living eulogy,
Hmm.
like, after your year of being president, what's the thing that you'd like to actually think that you're going to achieve that you would like to be remembered for?
I would like to be remembered as a somebody that wanted to represent women, mums, and that younger generation at a level, a senior level within what I'd consider a fairly male dominated environment. And I'll just tell you this last little story before we go, but one of my proudest moments of my career, I wasn't even there for, but my nan needed to sell her flat, and I was like, look, I'll get you some, like, I went and did the reviews, and I went, right, these are the 3 that we should speak to. Da, 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 da. I didn't have any involvement in it. So she's on evaluation, and this girl pops in, and she's like 23, and halfway through she went, can I ask, are you related to Megan 18? And she went, yeah, that's my granddaughter. And she was like, oh, she's made me feel like as a woman I can do things that I can't, never thought I could, and she's really inspiring, la 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 la. And my nan was so chuffed. And so for me, that's the kind of legacy that I'd like to leave behind. If I can make my nan proud, then I think that's the kind of thing that we all want, really, isn't it? So
Yeah,
but yeah,
definitely.
I think that for me was a really special moment where I thought, yeah, you know what, some people will hate what I do, and for every person that loves you, there'll be 3 people that hate you.
Mm.
And that's totally fine. And it's taken me a long time to realize that there'll be people that will cheer really hard when you soar, and there'll be people cheering really hard when you fail. And I've seen that recently. And I think that it's making sure that whatever happens, you remain with the integrity that you wanted, and set that example for that next generation.
Yes, definitely. Well, I think that that's actually a lovely thing, and especially your nan, bringing your nan into the story. You know, it's important, isn't it? You know, why are we here? It's like, you know, hopefully it's all about, not just about the kind of outside, but it's about family. It's about everything else as well that goes with it. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you join me today. Real interesting insights into your life and other things that you've been doing, bits that I certainly didn't know about you as well. But good luck. And I can't wait for 6 months' time and to be following you and seeing how you actually get on through your presidency, and then obviously beyond that as well, because it's not just that 1 year, it's everything else that you do. So you're doing really well. Keep it up, and lovely having you join me. Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Max.
You're welcome. See you soon. Bye bye.